Okay, hi. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Naomi, for this opportunity. I'm really honored to be part of this program and to join the conversation. When I started teaching Kalot, my daughter was in Gan. She was around 4 years old. And on a day that I had a Kala coming, I would always try to get the kids in bed at a reasonable hour so that I would have space and quiet for the teaching that I needed to do in the house. And my daughter always objected every time, Ima, I want to stay awake and meet the Kala. I need to see the Kala. I need to see the Kala. So one time I said to her, why is it so important to you to meet the Kala? And she said, oh, Ima, I need to see her beautiful dress. So needless to say, when I explained to her that the Kala was coming to my house in jeans and a t-shirt and not in her wedding dress, it was much easier to get her to bed on time. But the truth is that even if a Kala is not coming in her actual wedding dress when I meet with her, it is certainly true that a Kala comes with a certain aura. She has a very special energy about her. This time in her life is very special and exciting leading up to her wedding. So I want to give a little bit of background about what I do. In Israel, anyone getting married through the Rabbanut is required to meet with a madricha and learn Taharat HaMishpacha and about Mikveh, and is also required to go to the Mikveh and immerse in the Mikveh before her wedding. So I teach Kalot from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of them identify as observant. Most of the women that I meet actually do identify as traditional or secular. Some of them will meet with me multiple times. Most of them come and meet with one meeting that they're required to do. Some come with the intention of going to the mikveh just that one time, and others come with the intention of Taharat HaMishpacha being part of their married lifestyle. And with all these variations and differences, one of the first things that I learned in this process was that whether a woman identifies herself as observant, traditional, secular, it really doesn't automatically mean any one thing about her inner experience. She might be really looking forward to learning about these traditions, whether or not she has background in it, and she might be resentful of it, whether it's the expectation put upon her by the system or the expectation from her family and society. She might have some knowledge about Taharat HaMishpacha and Mikveh, and it might already inspire her, or she might find it a turnoff, or she might come with absolutely no background in Taharat HaMishpacha. When we start learning together, the ideas might inspire her, they might connect with her, or they might trigger a lot of struggles. Will she be open and tell me how she's feeling as we learn, or will she keep it inside and not tell me where it's meeting her and how she experiences it? I realized that the answer to all those questions was unique to each and every woman, regardless of what her form said under the category of how do you identify religiously. So here I am, a virtual stranger, and I'm about to sit down and discuss some very personal things with this woman. If Hadrachat Kala is not a good example of TMI, then I don't know what is. And how can I make this a meaningful experience? How can I be a positive part of this really intense stage of her life? And how can I make it personal to her and to her worldview? And then, as if that's not enough, what about my own doubts and my own struggles in regards to Taharat HaMishpacha and Mikveh? I am committed to the tradition, and I do find a lot of beauty and meaning in it. And alongside of that, I also struggle with certain concepts and have challenges. So what do I do with my doubts while I'm teaching? So it's a lot of responsibility coming at me from a lot of angles. So there's a really beautiful idea that I heard from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs about responsibility. He says responsibility is response ability, our ability and obligation to respond to situations that arise proactively, to take challenges and face them proactively, right? To respond actively. So it was really important to me to connect personally with each Kala, to understand where she's coming from, not to have any sort of one-size-fits-all style of teaching Taharat HaMishpacha, but to try to give her as an individual the best I could, as much as I can, to help her to help prepare her for all the upcoming stages. There's so many layers and topics in Taharat HaMishpacha and in Mikveh that we could discuss. And I'm going to focus on a couple that came from a particularly personal part of my journey as a Madrichat Kalot. So first I want to talk about the pressure that's sometimes associated with going to the mikveh. As in, will I feel the right thing when I go to the mikveh? Will I be able to create the spiritual experience that I am supposed to? Will I feel uplifted? Am I supposed to feel reborn? And what if I don't? What happens then? I know that sometimes I feel pressure, even after going to the mikveh for many years. And I know that a kala who has never done this before is likely to have some expectations from herself, from the experience. So I think that what's important is that I notice my thoughts. I think it's important that I listen to that inner voice and what my gut is saying about going to mikveh. Am I feeling anticipation? Am I feeling hesitation? Am I excited? What am I hearing from myself? I think it's important that I listen to that I take note of that inner voice and acknowledge it and accept it. And that voice may develop and change over time. And then it may change again. It's not one voice that always says the same thing. And I think I need to be open to hearing what I'm saying to myself about mikveh. And the result of accepting that inner voice, rather than struggling against it, is that I learned to give myself permission to not have a spiritually uplifting experience at the mikveh, permission to not feel guilty or inadequate, to realize that a woman who immerses and feels reborn and a woman who immerses and doesn't really feel anything are both tahor and have both had equally kosher immersions. And I think that's really important to hold on to. But on the other hand, I also want to give myself the opposite permission. I want to give myself permission to have an spiritually uplifting experience. I don't want to rule out the possibility that I might be emotionally or spiritually touched by the experience of going to the mikveh. Maybe this time, maybe next time, maybe a different time. I think the permission goes both ways. I don't want to box myself out of an experience any more than I want to box myself into it. And I really try to impart this to the kala in hopes that she'll be able to give herself permission to embrace all sorts of different experiences and at different times, and that she'll feel equally confident in the different experiences that she might have, and that she will be able to hear her inner voice as she goes through the process. Another topic I wanted to focus on is that actual moment of immersion in the water. Right? Maybe the first one of permission is a little more broad. It's about how we relate to the overall experience of mikveh. And now I want to talk about something specific when we're actually there, that moment of immersion in the water. I've been going to the mikveh regularly for many years, and it's very familiar to me, but it still sometimes feels awkward and uncomfortable. There can be a sense of vulnerability, and there's really no parallel to what we do at the mikveh in any other context in our social world. It's not like going to the pool. And also I need to remove clothing, jewelry, makeup, all the things that are external. And some people might find that freeing to be unencumbered by externalities. And I think also it can feel impersonal. You can feel like your identity is being taken away from you and give you almost a sense of anonymity in that moment. So for myself, I really wanted to find a way to personalize that specific moment of the actual immersion in the water. I found, and I have a personal ritual that does help me, and I share it with the kalot. I'll describe it. I like to imagine that when I actually immerse in the water, every time that I go underwater, that I submerge, that I'm creating a kind of special spiritual energy. That with each immersion, I'm creating this positive, strengthening energy, and that it's my privilege as the creator of that energy to dedicate it, to send it somewhere. Almost as if I get 3 wishes, and that I can direct that energy to where I feel it might be needed. So sometimes it might be something national. Sometimes it could be something universal. It could be something within my relationship with my husband. It could be something that one of my children is struggling with. It could be a friend that I think is struggling with something, or just something in myself that I want to send some energy to and some strength to. So with each dunk in the water, I actually feel like I mentally dedicate the energy that I'm creating to a destination. This helped me because it helped me take ownership over that moment of immersion in the water. It made me feel that it was a personal moment, that it was my moment, and it took away that feeling of anonymity for me. It also helped with that feeling of awkwardness because it gave me something to focus on mentally during that whole process. And I'm really happy when I can share this with the Kala, when I can tell her about this personal ritual. I don't expect her to do this exact same thing, though, she is more than welcome to if it speaks to her. But the point is not for her to do this exact thing. The idea is that, and my hope and intention is that if I can give this real life example of how I took a moment of challenge and personalized it, that she will be able to then do the same for whatever moments challenge her, and whatever parts of the tradition she finds challenging, that she'll find a way to personalize it and take ownership over it. So if we go back to the story of my daughter at the beginning, then what was actually happening in that story? So what was happening is that she was making assumptions based on preconceived notions, right? She heard the word kala, and to her that automatically meant a certain thing in terms of the clothing that she would see. And sometimes, or perhaps even often, I think we hear the word mikveh and we make assumptions about what it will be like or what we should feel like, or we peg ourselves into a specific attitude vis-a-vis the mikveh experience. It can happen to a kala before her first mikveh experience. And as I explained, for some of the women that I meet with, the plan is for that to be their only mikveh experience, though, I never know where life will take them. And I know it can happen to those of us who go repeatedly to the mikveh. So just as I think it's really important that there be no judgment and no pressure regarding the inner voice and the experience of the kalot that I teach, no matter what their background is, I think there's also no place for judging myself when it comes to that inner voice about mikveh. When I immerse in the mikveh, I'm connecting to a really ancient tradition, something that's been done for generations and generations. And it's also a moment that I immerse that's a brand new moment. This moment, this exact moment has never existed before. This person in this place at this time is unique to that moment. And I'm therefore creating something new and adding a new energy to the tradition. And most importantly, that means that every mikveh experience is really one of a kind and can be new every time. So that's what I have to share right now, just because we do have this, we have so much to cover this evening and so many amazing voices to hear. I really enjoyed sharing these thoughts and ideas with you. I think it's a real big honor to be part of this conversation. And I hope that this has provided some positive food for thought about the really important and deep topic of mikveh. And again, I thank Naomi for this opportunity to contribute to this.